Hi everyone, welcome back. How are you today? Good, I hope, and ready to learn a little bit more about music. Last week we learned about two words, beat and rhythm. Can you remember what they mean? Beat is the heartbeat of the music, that steady pulse that goes the whole way through. Rhythm is the short and long sounds that jump in and out the beat, and together they make music, and it's what we move about to, and it's what instruments play along to when they use a piece of music. So we used that last week and we turned our bodies into instruments. Can you remember that? We used body percussion, stamping, clicking, clapping, slapping. So hopefully you enjoyed that and you gave some of the video lessons I suggested a go to. This week we're going to learn about real percussion instruments, and maybe you'll get a chance to make your own too. Fingers crossed. But before we can do that, we're actually going to just take some time and learn about the instruments that belong in the orchestra. All the instruments that we can play belong to four main families. The first family is the brass family. This is where you'll find instruments like the trumpet, the trombone, the tuba. They're all made of metal, hence why they're called brass. And they're all played by blowing air through them. You might recognise some of them from the pictures I've put on the screen for you just now. They're fantastic instruments. They can be loud, like a military band playing a morning waking call, or they can be quiet when they're part of an orchestra. The next family is the string family. This is where you'll find instruments like the violin, the viola, the double bass, the harp, the guitar, all instruments I'm sure you recognise. They're called string instruments because they have string. They're made of wood, and when you play the string, the strings vibrate through the wooden structure of the instrument, and it makes a really super sound. The strings can be bowed, like you would see someone playing a violin, or they can be plucked. When you see someone playing a big double bass, it's normally about higher than me. They're really, really big and make a really deep sound. When you pluck, the sounds are short, and when you bow the strings, you get a long, lovely sound. And again, it's such a fabulous instrument to listen to, any of the string instruments. The third family is my favourite family, and I'll tell you why in a minute. It's called the Woodwind family, and it's where you get instruments like the saxophone, the recorder, the flute. I'm sure you'll recognise some of these instruments as well. It's my favourite family because I learned to play the clarinet when I was younger, and the clarinet is a woodwind instrument. I brought it along to show you. Here it is. Woodwind instruments can be made of wood or plastic, usually, or metal. So a flute is made of metal. My clarinet is made of a kind of plastic type material, and it has metal buttons and things on it. Just like the name suggests, wind, you need to blow into these instruments as well. By covering the holes, you create different sounds as you blow the air through them. But how does the air get through? Well, these instruments are very special because you'll see in the name also is the word wood. This is the wood here. This is a really thin piece of wood, and it's called a reed. And when you blow into the mouthpiece, the reed vibrates, as well as the sound coming through with the air down the channel of the clarinet. And as I said, as you cover the holes, it changes the sound. And this is how brass instruments work as well. As you cover the holes, the note changes. I thought you might like to hear what the clarinet sounds like. See if you like it as much as I do. Now I'm a little bit rusty, but I'm going to try and give you a tune and let you hear it. Here goes. A few squeaks in there. As I said, I'm a little bit rusty. But did you recognise the tune? Hopefully you heard Happy Birthday. Just going to put this back down here so we can talk about the last family of musical instruments. It's the percussion family, and it's the one we're going to talk most about today. These instruments are so different. Not all of them are the same. They're played differently, they sound different. So we're going to look at all of these instruments and just see how interesting they actually are. Percussion instruments can also be made of wood or metal, but they can also be made of plastic too. And they belong to two groups: tuned percussion and untuned percussion instruments. Tuned percussion instruments are pitched instruments. What that means as a musical term is that they make different notes when they are played. I have a selection of tuned instruments in front of me just now, and they're played in slightly different ways. The first one is called a Glockenspiel. You may have already used this instrument when you've been in school. Glockenspiels are always made of metal. The plastic box is just to keep it handy and to be able to take it from class to class. But the actual instrument itself is made of metal bars. And they look a little bit like a piano. Each metal bar is a different note. And it's played by using one of these, a beater. Now, beaters can be made from wood, and they can be made from rubber, and they can be made from a soft material called felt. Each beater makes an instrument sound different. I'm going to use a wooden beater on my Glockenspiel just now. Have a listen. Now, if you can hear it, it might be difficult. When I hit the bar, the metal bar vibrates because it's bouncing on a little rubber bed underneath, and it moves up and down ever so slightly. So that's called a vibration. And as you hit the bar, it vibrates and it creates a sound. If I had to press the bar, it stops the sound because it stops the vibration. So if I had to use a rubber beater, it sounds a little bit different. Listen. Maybe you could hear that the rubber beater makes the sound of the metal bar a little bit softer. Listen again. I'll play the same note with the wooden beater and with the rubber beater. That's a wooden beater. That wasn't very good. Slightly softer. Another instrument that requires a beater is this instrument here. This tuned percussion instrument is called a xylophone, and xylophones are always made of wood. The bars are still resting on a little soft bed underneath, and they still vibrate, but being made of wood, it sounds a little bit different. And I'm using a rubber beater on this. It doesn't create a long sound like the metal bars do. It sounds very plinky plonky. Not a musical term, just my term. If I use a wooden beater, see if you can hear any difference. I think it sounds much more woodeny. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But this is a xylophone, and it's a little handy size because real xylophones are usually much bigger. I have one here just to show you. the kind of size. These are bigger ones that can be used. And in an orchestra, they might be even bigger again. But the same thing applies with wooden bars. Let me hear you. I'll let you hear this. Hear it? Again, you can still hear that kind of wooden plinky plonky sound. Not too different from this one, because these bars are a little bit bigger and the bass of the xylophone is different. It creates a slightly deeper and more hollow sound. The last tuned percussion instrument I've looked out for you today are these lovely little bells. These are tuned bells, and they're also made of metal. You have a bell dome, which is made of metal, and then inside you have a little dropper. When the dropper hits off the side of the dome, you get that lovely metal sound. And it sounds very like a Glockenspiel because they're both made of metal. These are really clever bells because I don't need to shake them, which you would normally do with bells. I can push the little button on the top and it plays. Can you hear that sound lasting? Listen. A big long vibration comes from the metal dome here. But if I hold on to the dome, listen what happens. Doesn't sound very good, does it? It's stopping the vibration, just like it did when I touched the bar on the Glockenspiel, the chime bar. So here, I let it go again and the vibration is free to move and the note is made. Shall we try playing a little tune? Here we go. That reminds me of a clock that used to stand in my grand's hall. So there you have it, a small selection of tuned percussion instruments. All make different sounds, different notes. Some are played by being struck or beaten. Some are played by being shook or pressed. Let's look at the untuned percussion instruments now. Untuned percussion instruments can also be made out of wood or metal, but they are sometimes made out of other materials too, which we'll see as we go through and look at our little selection. Untuned percussion instruments are unpitched. That means they only make one sound. It can be loud or soft, but not high or low. So where your Glockenspiel and your bells made different notes, untuned percussion can't do that. So if we have a little look through our selection here, you'll see exactly what I mean. They're all played in different ways too. If we take the drum, for example, a drum is beaten with a stick or a drumstick. Drums are normally made out of a carcass that can be wooden or plastic, but traditionally this would have been skin that was stretched across, an animal skin that would have been stretched across the drum, but nowadays they make a material that's very like that. It's not real skin, but we call it a drum skin, and it's pulled very, very tight and it allows that brilliant sound to come from the drum. Another percussion instrument that is struck is our triangle, not made of wood or of skin, but of metal. I can actually feel the vibration in my finger that's travelling all the way around the triangle. Feels a little bit funny. Again, it can be played quiet or loud, but still the same sound. I can stop there the vibration by holding on to it there. So again, only one sound that it makes. This instrument is also struck. These are called claves, and sometimes you'll see things called wood blocks as well. You hit them off each other and they make that lovely wooden sound. And again, if you try really carefully, you can play them quietly. Or as you heard, I did it really loudly. And they're great for rhythm. Remember, rhythm fits in between the beat of the music. So all these instruments are struck. Other percussion instruments can be shaken, like these eggs. These are made of plastic and they can be shook from side to side or up and down. And again, they can make lots of lovely sounds to go along. This is also a shaker. It's made of metal. So depending on what is inside your shaker, again, it can be beans, it can even be dried peas, it can be pieces of plastic. You'll get a slightly different sound coming from them, but they are shaken. A really good sound. Another way to play untuned percussion instrument is scraping. You may have used this before with me in a music lesson. It's called a guiro, and guiros can look different. This instrument in front of me is also a guiro, and we'll look at that in a wee minute. But guiros are wooden, usually, and they are scraped with a stick or a scraper. So there are grooves in the guiro instrument itself, and as you scrape the guiro, you hear a really cool sound. So, although it's the one sound, it does sound slightly different when you scrape the other way. Okay, if I come to this one, you can see there are two little funnels. Okay, one is taller than the other, and you can play this guiro in the same way you do that by scraping. You can also strike the guiro and it makes a great sound too. I like the sound the guiro makes. Now, believe it or not, this is also an instrument you scrape. It's called a Clatter Pillar, and it's quite a new instrument that we use in St Aloysius. And what happens is, as you bend, the little blocks, which are made of plastic, rub against each other and they make that sound. And again, it looks a bit like a caterpillar, doesn't it? The way it's kind of moving about. So that's why it's called a clatter pillar. Clever name. So those instruments are all scraped. Now, there are some weird and wonderful percussion instruments out there. Some of them don't even have a name. You can make your own. There are so many bands and groups that form that just make percussion instruments out of things they have lying about the house. This one I discovered a little while ago. This is called a thunder tube, and it makes a great sound. There's a few different ways to play it, but the best way to hear it is this. Can you hear it? When you move it does sound like thunder. And it's a bit like a drum. This metal coil moves about and vibrates, and the drum skin, which is kind of similar, if you can hear it, it makes a whole vibration in this hollow tube. So it's very hollow on the inside. Thunder and lightning indeed. A few minutes ago, I told you that people make instruments out of the weirdest things that they find lying about. And they make the most amazing sounds. And they perform in public. How do you fancy making some instruments for yourself? Percussion instruments? Thought you might. Now, there will be some things that you need to gather. You don't need to gather them right now. As I've said in my post, you can watch and learn, then go and do when you've had a chance to get everything together. Are you ready? Let's go. So here we go. The first instrument we're going to make is a tuned percussion instrument. It's a water glockenspiel. So all you'll need is water, some empty glasses, a wooden spoon or a metal spoon. I'm just using my drum beater today. And some food colouring if you want. You don't need the food colouring, it just makes it a little bit fun. So you can see I've lined up my glasses. I have 6 here. You don't need to use 6. You could use 3 or 4, 5. It doesn't matter. In each glass, I poured a different amount, and this is where you can have fun. You just want each glass to make a different sound. Generally, the more water you have in a glass, the lower the note. The less water you have in a glass, the higher the note. Because I've got different glasses, you can see these 3 glasses are the same, and these 3 glasses are the same. It's not a perfect glockenspiel, but it's as good as. Now, when I've put my water in, I've just simply used a couple of drops of food colouring, and just watch you don't get it all over your hands, because I did. Just drop a couple in, and then you can give it a little stir and let it settle. I've tried to use the colours of the rainbow here. I'm going to use a paintbrush and I'm going to give it a little stir. Simple. Okay, so now I have a kind of rainbow of music, and you simply just have fun. Listen, as I say, it might be a bit rough. Not bad, eh? It's good, and it's a tuned percussion instrument, but wouldn't it be good to form a band? Let's see if we can make some untuned percussion instruments to play along with our glockenspiel. The next instrument we're going to make is a must for every band. A drum. Dead easy, nothing complicated about it at all. All you need is an empty tub or an empty box. You can decorate them to make them look a little bit different. You can play them with your hand, or you can play them with a good old wooden spoon, and you'll get a great sound. The sound that it makes depends on where you hit it. So, on the top, on the side, on the edges. Again, different cardboard box, and make sure it's hollow because you get the better sound. And then if you hit it, a sharper sound. Here, dead easy. To go with our drum, we're going to add a little Maraca and Shaker, some percussion instrument. All you need is a cup. Now you can use a paper cup, and again you can decorate it to make it look a little bit snazzy, or you can use a plastic cup. And inside you're going to use something like lentils or dried peas. I've got rice today. Something that's quite small. Pasta would be quite big. It might work okay, but rice is a little bit smaller. So if you just pour some, you can hear that sound already. Not too much into your cup. You can hear it. I'm going to put it into my plastic cup as well. And then all you have to do is, I've got some tin foil. You could use cling film as well. But I'm going to put tin foil over the top and an elastic band. And that elastic band just holds that foil in place. Make sure I've got it up high enough. We don't want anything leaking when we give it a big shake. There we go, and we shake. And again, up and down, or side to side. Good sound. Let's try the plastic cup. Covering it over. My elastic band, nice and tight. Here we go, let's see if this sounds different to the paper cup. Oh, I might have some escaping. Yeah, tin foil's making its own sound as well, actually, on the top of the cup, which is interesting. So, here we go. I think I like that sound better. It's longer, it's much louder, isn't it? So, we've got our Glockenspiel, our tuned instrument. We have a drum, an untuned instrument. We have our shaker, an untuned instrument. And the last instrument we're going to have, every band needs a guitarist. You need a baking tray from your oven or your kitchen. I don't know where you keep them. And I've got some really big elastic bands. You can see them here. Yeah? And all I've done is stretch them across the baking tray, like so. I'm trying to make sure that they're nice and flat and they don't have any twirls or twists in them. And I've put 5 bands on my baking tray. You don't need as many as 5. The tighter the elastic bands, the better the sound you get. And obviously, depending on where they are, on the board or on the tray, sorry, it will change the sound that they make. So let's have a listen. Not very good, is it? It's hitting off the metal at the back. So what we really need to do is play it away. You can also do this over a shoebox or a box. Just leave the top of the box empty, or the top of the box off. And if you put the elastic band over, you can create the same kind of instrument, your own little guitar. Maybe even a double bass. So, there is the last instrument you're going to have a go at. If you want, gather the things that you need and then you can go off and give it a try. And when you've made them, why not get other people in your family involved? You could make all the instruments, everybody take an instrument each, and you've got your very own band. Maybe you can make an instrument from something I haven't shown you. That would be amazing to see. So if you do that, then please drop me a wee picture or maybe send in a wee video snippet, a small one, just for me to see, and mention me at Mrs. Love on your team, and I'll know that you've sent me it in. And I can't wait to see them. I hope you have fun doing it. Well, we've come to the end of our lesson today, and we've actually learned quite a bit, even if I do say so myself. But there's a couple of things I'd still like you to do. In my lesson post today, there are a couple of video links. Go, watch, enjoy them. Learn a little bit more about the instruments that are out there in the world and their place in the orchestra. And then when you've done that, there's a little activity to put what you've learned today and through the videos to the test. I promise you you'll enjoy it and it'll be really worthwhile. And finally, don't forget, if you do fancy making your instruments for yourself, you can always gather what you need and then come back and watch this video lesson when you've got the time. Merry music making, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Try some more for yourself. Find the links and tasks that you need in my class team announcement today.